Hello YouTube. Today we're working on a 2012 Dodge Ram 1500 with a 5.7 Hemi. Customer complaint, motor knocking. So we're gonna go ahead and customer wants to go ahead and just replace the engine. So we're just gonna go ahead and listen to the customer and pull the engine out. You wanna start off with dropping all your fluids first, as far as coolant and engine oil. There's a couple of ways to do it. You can prepare yourself to either drop the transmission first, then the engine, or you can leave the transmission stationary, which I'm gonna do just to beat flag hours and to be fast and efficient. After you're done draining all the fluids, you wanna go ahead and disconnect your positive and negative terminal just in case. Some people disconnect the negative terminal. I like to do both. I don't like getting electrocuted or seeing sparks, because you're gonna be pulling the electrical harness as well when you're pulling the motor, as well as the starter to get to the torque converter bolts. Oh, this is where you start pulling the harness. I usually just jump right into it. As soon as I disconnect the battery, whatever's right here, just start ripping it apart. Pretty much whatever's in your way, you have to take off. Just remember, you're gonna have to put it back. Or heater hoses. This is probably the easiest and cleanest way to get coolant out without making it a huge mess. Next step, you're gonna have to remove the serpentine belt, which requires a 3/8 drive ratchet for the belt tensioner. So then once you get the belt removed, you're gonna wanna remove the tensioner. The whole object of this is to try to not lose Freon or any of the power steering fluid. So you wanna hang the serpentine system to the side so you can still remove the motor and not lose any more money than you already have to. When you remove the alternator bolts, they're a size 15 millimeter. I know it's metric on a Dodge. What I normally do, if the motor's gonna sit for a while, bag and tag. You wanna get the bolts, throw them in a Ziploc bag right on their alternator, so it helps remember exactly where they went at. You're going to want to do is remove anything that's on top, just because when you have to return a cord, you're going to want to save as many parts, or else you're going to have to purchase those new parts. So I just go ahead and pull the intake manifold. It's 8 millimeter all the way across. There's about 4 bolts on each side, 8 total bolts, and they're all 8 millimeter. You're also going to have to disconnect the fuel line. That requires a specialty disconnect tool. You can get it at your local auto parts store. If you don't have one, they sell them at O'Reilly's, AutoZone. It's pretty simple. Grab a little blue one. Throw it on in there. And disconnect your fuel line. fuel come out, but that's all right. You just lift up, make sure everything's disconnected. Once you pull the manifold forward a little bit, you're gonna have a couple of connectors you're gonna have to undo. Grab your pick so you can undo your safety clips. Again, try not to break the clip. Plastic sucks. Back over here, map sensor. Just be careful not to break it. Got another hose running back here too. I gotta flip around for it. After removing the intake manifold, the serpentine system, pretty much everything from the top side is how they call it. You want to come to the back or underneath the motor. Same concept if you're working on the ground or if the vehicle's in the air. You got to take off the bell housing bolts. It's a 15 millimeter. I usually like to use a long extension because it'll help me get past the transmission. To me, it just makes up for a lot easier removal. Bolts on the transmission, you're gonna go and remove the starter. Those are the same 15 millimeter bolts. Remove the starter wires. That's a 13 millimeter bolt, and then a quick clip. And then once you're done removing the starter, you go to the torque converter. And once you're removing the torque converter, you're gonna use a 18, 19 millimeter on the front of the crankshaft, and you're gonna wanna spin this to get these bolts back here off of the torque converter flex plate. A little bit of a closer view. One way to check it is, see how it spins freely? That means there's no more bolts connected to it, so you're good to go. Next, we'll be removing the motor mount nuts only. We're gonna go ahead and leave them in. I mean, you can leave it, just loosen them, but I prefer taking them out so nothing gets caught up when you're pulling the engine. They have a little heat shield, so once you take off this bolt, pull this little heat shield off, you're gonna use an 18 millimeter with a swivel and a 1/2 inch drive impact. If you have it, makes it lower things a little bit. Now that everything is disconnected from the exhaust manifolds on both sides, on this truck they had 18 millimeter bolts. All of the bell housing bolts, they go all the way around, 15 millimeter, including the ones on the opposite side. These are 18 millimeter bolts. They hold also the bell housing. Make sure everything's disconnected as far as the wiring harness, motor mount bolts to brackets, so nothing gets tied up. And when we lower the vehicle, I'm gonna put a block right here with the jack so I can tilt the motor up with the engine hoist on top of the motor. It's for a better angle and a pull, so I don't crack the bell housing or bind anything up. So after you've gotten all of the items removed, like the motor mount bolts. You want to put your jack underneath the transmission with the board so you don't crush the pin. Big thing you need to do. You want to set up your chain. There's a couple bolts in the back of the heads you want to use, and then the same thing reversed in the front. And make sure your chain's not as long, because if your hoist maxes out, it's kind of a pain in the butt to kind of reverse it. So you want to make sure your chain's leveled, transmission supported properly, and then you can start your pull. And all of your bolts are off of your bell housing. She goes, she's free.
There's the order list stuff here.
Well, now that we transfer parts,